with Vero Beach City Council candidate Amelia Graves today to talk about what she would hope to accomplish if she's elected to the City Council.
Thank you for having
Amelia,
me.
for joining us.
Absolutely. This is a new experience.
So we did a radio interview last Friday, which will air by the time this is on the web. It will have aired Sunday, and then we'll be on again this afternoon at 3 o'clock. For those who have an interest in knowing more about your background, listening to that radio interview would be a good opportunity.
Absolutely. I think we were able to really see the different things that kind of led me to where I am today.
And that will air this afternoon at 3 o'clock on WAXC AM 1370 and FM 107.9. So I encourage people to listen to that.
Absolutely.
So what I thought we might focus on now is a discussion about why you're running for the City Council and what you think can and should be different and what you would hope to accomplish as a member of the City Council.
Okay.
So what concerns you about the current direction of the city and specifically the council?
I think that what concerns me about this specific council and the direction the city has taken is there is a lack of understanding of where we've come from, and in order to not, if you don't understand where we've come from, I don't think you can have as good an idea of where we need to go in order to maintain our heritage and history but still embrace the future and improve upon things. I think there are definitely traditions in this town like Crescent Cemetery that are really important to the residents here. I think that some of the services we offer, the recreation programs, the police department, these are things that make our city really unique in the high level and quality that we offer our residents. And I really want to see a council that is a safeguard to those assets the community enjoys.
One of the characters of this sleepy little city by the sea that's changed over time is that it's not so sleepy anymore. You know, we're still by the sea and we still have a lagoon, and though it's critical to us and is in danger, we're still a relatively small community facing, it seems to me, some decisions about how we'll grow from here going forward. Critical decisions have been made in this community over the last decades about height limitations as an example, that in many people's minds has completely altered the course of the development versus what it might have been otherwise. So there's discussion now about short-term rentals, and that seems to have become a major issue, whether those daily and weekly rentals would be frequent, sanctioned by the city, and thus become much more frequent. What's your thought about that?
Well, on both of those counts, I think what you'll notice, especially with our strict height limits in our zoning, is if you drive down A1A in Vero Beach, you can see the ocean. The further south you get on A1A as you make your way down the coast, all of a sudden the ocean disappears and high rises go up. And I think that's what made us so unique, and the gem by the sea is you can see the sea from our beach side and going across our bridges. And I would not want to see our landscape dotted with high rises. I think that would take away from who we are and our natural beauty. As far as the short-term rentals go, I think that was a great decision that people made decades ago, seeing what was going on in areas around us, seeing the tourism picking up, and realizing that our residents wanted to have their homes and have these communities that are small and quiet next to the ocean, and not have it turn into a Fort Lauderdale, not have it turn into the West Coast where everything that's on the beach starts becoming tourism. We have fantastic hotels that our tourists can be in. We have fantastic places for them to shop, to eat, to be a part of. But I think we need to keep our residential neighborhoods safe from this because there's unique character to each section of town. South Beach, Central Beach, Old Riamar, McCanch Park, all of these areas are very unique, and if we just have high turnover of people all the time, I think it disrupts the quality of life, it disrupts safety, and we are a community of neighbors. Everyone knows their neighbors here, and I think we need to keep it that way.
Shooting our television interview.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, sorry we're closed today, but we're open Monday through Saturday.
all right.
Thank goodness for editing.
I know. I stopped this so that we could know where we were time-wise.
So we just had a customer come by,
Mhm.
which gives me a reason to explain where we're taking
Absolutely.
this interview. We're in Love Juice, a new business my wife opened just a few months ago on 20th Place, the one-way pair that travels from east to west. And this is a convenient place to shoot these interviews. We live well west of town, so she's allowed me to use this space for the interviews.
It's great, and I can definitely smell wheatgrass, so it smells fresh in here.
It has a healthy smell to it. Yeah, right. You just feel healthier being here. Right. But we were talking about the development along the dune line and how in communities where you have high rises built right along the dune line, at 2 o'clock you might as well come in. There's no more sun on. If you're out there for sun, there's no more sun on the beach after 2 o'clock. Just a small thing, but it's just an example of the difference between Vero Beach and some other communities.
It is, and I think it's a commitment to the natural landscape, it's a commitment to our beach, it's a commitment to our neighborhoods, and a commitment to our residents, saying we want everyone to enjoy an ocean view in this town. It's not just for a select few.
With the high rises comes higher density as well. Higher density, more congestion on the roads, and all of the other things that come with higher densities make a community different as well.
I think so, and the interesting thing is we do have a lot of great homes for sale on the beach side. We have great single family homes. And what I would like to see is Vero Beach work harder to brand itself as a fantastic place to live and work, especially for young professionals and especially for young families, to come and invest, not just financially but socially. Telecommuting has turned into one of the biggest jobs there is, because with the internet and with Skype and all of these ways to work through companies, you no longer have to be in the same city in the headquarters as your company. I have friends who work on the New York Stock Exchange. I have friends who work in Atlanta, but they work from here. They go to meetings on their computer. They do all of these things through their computer. I met one gentleman who telecommutes to Germany 3 times a week through his computer. So why not do that here? Why not companies who employees can work from anywhere headquarter here, and then we have fantastic job opportunities, and we're putting people in this community who want to be here for the right reasons and long term and invest and become part of Vero Beach.
So you're now on the subject of economic development opportunities for a community like Vero Beach versus a community that might want a different kind of economic development, large employers. But we have some and are grateful for them. No one has been sent out to find another employer that will have a 2,000 employee headcount. That's not what the community consensus seems to be.
Well, and I think that that's also something that the county is working on with their enterprise zones and some other things like that. And I can see that on the rise, and they have recruited some fantastic companies to come here and work. But as far as employing people within the city limits of Vero Beach, I think getting high-tech firms that can offer opportunities to people to work from an office or from their home and be part of that workforce will enable more people to move here.
There's a lot of discussion among the city council members during their meetings, and certainly a lot of discussion among council watchers and others. And there are a lot of people that take an interest in what the council's doing and have a lot to say at meetings, expressing their concerns, one, about the city's budget and how to get that under control, and 2, about maintaining services. And there seems, obviously there's a trade-off there. So what's your thought about how the city could get its budget under control? And the second half of that is what do you see as the kind of services the city can and should be able to provide?
I think that the city can always perfect its budget. I think there's always ways to tweak it. I think there's always ways to become more efficient. I think we can look at different ways to save even $1 or $2, $3, $4, $5 extra dollars. That can always be worked on. I think the city council should always take that as a challenge, is how can we become more efficient. I think that right now the city's positioning itself in a really good way, especially in conjunction with the Finance Commission, to really enable the city after the sale of the electric to become more solvent and not have to decrease services in a drastic way. I don't think that after the sale of the electric, the residents of Vero Beach should all of a sudden have to lose what made Vero Beach so special and say, okay, well, I have lower utility bills, but now I don't have the recreation programs I enjoyed, the parks aren't as well maintained, I have less police. I don't think it has to be the one or the other. I think we can have both. It's just going to require us to take really creative looks and examine all the different areas in which we can save money. One suggestion that came up from the Finance Commission, especially after the underfunded pensions are paid, is to look at monetizing specific property that the county or the city holds. There are pages of property that we have small slivers in between neighborhood, in between houses. We have little easements. We have all of this stuff that we're maintaining, we're insuring, we're mowing, but our residents really aren't benefiting from it. It's my understanding that there is even some property being held in other counties. The city somehow acquired years ago, and we've just been maintaining it. I just don't see how property in other counties would be serving the residents of Vero Beach. So if we could monetize that property to allow our budget to deliver services to the residents within the Vero Beach city limits, it would be better for everybody.
Assuming the sale goes forward, during the first 3 years after the sale, Florida Power and Light would be paying the city rent of $1.5 million on the approximately 3 years, $1.5 million for the power plant site. After that, the city will need to come up with another $1.5 million, or hope that property values have risen, or find some additional cuts in spending. But for the first 3 years, it looks like the gap would be, what, somewhere around $1 million?
Yes, and property values are rising. In 2007, we were $5 million plus in property taxes, and that's when properties were at the highest level. And right now, we're almost at 4.7 million. So we're closing that gap of our property taxes during the boom to now post-recession. And I think that those property values will continue to increase. I also think that one of the other areas to look at is that with the sale of the electric goes a lot of our costs in maintaining fleet vehicles for the electric. I think something in the neighborhood of 70% of our vehicles that the city is required to maintain will no longer be under the city management. FP&L will take the vehicles that still have a lot of life use in them, and the ones they don't, we can sell because we won't need them any longer. So there's all of these things that are attached to the power plant that after the sale, not just financially will we be getting this money from FP&L, but our costs of maintaining certain things will disappear as well. So that will decrease these budgetary items and allow that not to have those expenses to leave our books, and we can focus on these other areas of services.
One of the selling points for divesting the city of its electric system was that the savings to the 10,000 or so customers within the city limits would far exceed the loss of revenue to the general fund. But, you know, the general fund is receiving about 5.7 million in a direct transfer, additional transfers for administrative, but 5.7 million direct. And yet the gap that's being looked at for the first 3 years is about $1 million, and more like 2.5 after the first 3 years, assuming there's no change in the property tax base and so forth. All of that, 1 million or 2.5 million, is way below the 10 million estimated savings in electric for the 10,000 customers within the city. But, you know, this is a long question, but the selling point was, look, we're going to save 10 million, so what if we raise taxes 5 million? And now it looks like in order to maintain the existing level of services, a tax increase of $1 million, which would represent about a 25% increase in the city's millage rate, which would represent only a 5% increase in the overall tax bill. You know, it's just off the table for discussion. One of the arguments has been that, look, the city, what organization couldn't cut 10% or 15% from its budget? And of course, that might be, the answer might be an organization that's already cut 25% from its budget. I don't think a lot of people realize how much the city has actually cut its staff and its spending.
It has. I mean, we've decreased our employee count by over 100 in the past few years. We're going to be decreasing our pension requirements. I mean, while there's $5 million going into the pension directly, or to the budget directly from the utilities, we're also paying $3 million out on pension. And so if we can cover that cost, well, now you're not paying 3 out anymore, even though you had 5 coming in. So there's all of these ways that the sale will affect the budget in different areas, which we won't have to be spending as much because we won't have as much to spending on the maintenance, the utilities, the pensions, and we can use that money towards other things, or we can even decrease our budget some. So I do not foresee property taxes going up greatly. I do not foresee services being cut greatly. I think that the city is working on positioning itself to still be the city of Vero Beach even after the sale of the utilities, and we can start preparing ourselves now. The sale was supposed to close in January, a few months from now. That's not going to happen. It's going to be further down the line, but that doesn't mean we can't start looking at how to do that, but in a way that still maintains our character and our quality of life here. I do not think selling off Cresson Cemetery is going to be the golden ticket to getting us out of a budget issue. So,
You know, one newspaper in the community, one of the weeklies in town, suggested that you chummed up to the folks who want to save Big Blue.
mm-hmm.
What's your answer to that?
My answer would be that I've chummed up to every resident of Vero Beach because I want to hear from them. I don't think that you can represent just one group of people. I want to hear why you think we should do this, why you don't think we should do this, how can we meet in the middle. And the more that I hear from our finance commission and the more that I hear from other residents, at the end of the day, the most important thing is maintaining the quality of life here in Vero Beach. And one of the ways that we've decided to do that with our residents going to the ballots through multiple referendums is saying, we don't want these power bills anymore, and we want to be out of this. So we want the city to sell VB Electric to FP&L. So the city signed a binding contract, and now it's this new council's turn to continue forth the will of the voters. And so I think to say that I've chummed up to any one particular group is inaccurate. I've opened myself up to anyone and everyone in Vero Beach who wants to talk about the issues we're facing and share their concerns with me, because that's my job if I get elected to city council, is to represent every citizen.
So Florida Power and Light is investing, it'll surely wind up being more than $10,000, but as of the last financial filing for a political action committee that's working for Tracy Carroll's reelection, FPL has invested $10,000 of the $10,100. They seem pretty certain they need to have Tracy Carroll reelected to ensure the sale goes forward. And is it your position that you will support the sale and sign the changes in the contract as long as they don't affect the city's financial position there?
As long as the city remains revenue neutral, which the executive from FP&L stated at a recent campaign event, she does not foresee the city of the position changing, even with the additions to the contract, even with the new amendments they're working on. As long as the city is in the same financial position it was before these new additions were made, I cannot see a city council walking away from this. It just doesn't seem. I can't imagine it. It would be against what the voters have asked for. It would be an act of bad faith against a contract we've signed. I think it would be reckless to put the city in that position and to put the residents in that position when the city would be in the same financial position. The sale just needs to move forward because it's been divisive. It's been really divisive in our community, and I don't think that one candidate can deliver this to Vero Beach. I think it will be the council that delivers it, and I see the council going forward. Even if I don't get elected, even if Tracy Carroll doesn't get elected, I still think the sale's going to go through regardless of who's sitting on council.
So why did it not make sense to you then to sign the pledge that Glenn Herron asked the candidates to sign?
There are several reasons why I didn't sign that pledge, one of which is I have not been asked to sign a pledge by any organization in Vero Beach that is working with the election or on this campaign or has a group of citizens behind it here. I think it's inappropriate for a city council member to bind themselves like that to an organization that doesn't have a history or community in our community or members that I can speak to. And also, I don't think it's very good to bind yourself to an organization or company that we are in a position of negotiating with. I really hope that everything works out in everyone's best interest, but at the end of the day, council's to represent the city of Vero Beach's interests, not FP&L's interests. And since that pledge was prepared on FP&L's dime, I do not think that anyone running for Vero Beach City Council should sign that pledge.
My colleague Milt Thomas thought it might be reasonable, given their request that the council members sign a pledge, that they also sign a pledge that they'll close the deal with the city of Vero Beach without any additional expense to the city beyond what was laid out in the original agreement. As you might expect, we haven't heard from them.
Mm-hmm.
There doesn't seem to be any willingness on their part to sign a pledge.
And at the end of the day, these pledges, it's all kind of this gamesmanship and showmanship, and it takes away from the really important parts of getting to know candidates, talking to them about where they stand. And I just don't think that these chess games through this campaign have benefited the residents of Vero Beach in learning who they want to vote for.
What about the tone of discussion and interaction among the council members, and also during council meetings, public comment time, as an example? Mm-hmm. What thoughts do you have about that, Amelia?
Okay. I think no matter who you are, to go up and stand in front of a group of people who are in elected positions to talk to them about your city can be intimidating to start, to share your opinion in an open public forum like that. And so I think that if we start creating a situation where people are afraid that people are going to be, disrespectful to them or mock them or take them out of the room if they don't like what they have to say, we're going to lose hearing from some really great people on things that are important to them to Vero Beach, because they're not going to want to put themselves out there. And I think that if we don't build a situation over at City Hall where we're open and we encourage everyone to participate and have an open dialogue and say, please come into this hall, please tell us about the city, tell us about your concerns, about your needs, about what you think we're doing right, about what you think we're doing wrong, we're going to lose a lot as a community. And I just think that this council, certain members of this council have created that environment where if you don't fit certain molds that they deem appropriate, you can't participate. And I know that there were different things that happened this past summer, and I know there were apologies issued, but it still sets a tone. And I would like to see people treating each other with respect and kindness and saying thank you for coming and sharing your opinion. I don't have to agree with it, but you took the time to come and participate in government, which is the foundation of this nation.
Public comment time sometimes becomes the debate time between the citizen who's come before the council and a particular council member who may not agree with what the citizen is proposing or suggesting. It winds up being debate time. When that happens, it seems to me that they've forgotten one of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is to seek to understand and then to be understood. I was in a Covey seminar one time where they gave each of us a small talking stick, which is a Native American tradition. And if you're holding the talking stick, you can speak, and if you don't have it, you can't speak. But that might be helpful.
maybe it's funny, maybe we need to go back to relearning the rules of sharing and of using your words and of your time and my time and respecting each other. I think that obviously we don't want to see filibusters on the city floor or city council floor where someone is just holding the mic the entire meeting, hijacking the agenda. But I do think that if someone is bringing forward things that need to be addressed, they should be, or maybe we should be able to schedule meetings where citizens can talk with these council members that they have issues with. But I think the idea to shut people off, to shut them down just because you don't like what they have to hear, as long as it's not becoming personal attacks and it's regarding city business, that's important. I mean, these are your elected, this is your constituents. You're supposed to hear from them. And I think it's an appropriate forum for people to hear from their constituents rather than if they bump into you on the street and start expressing their dissatisfaction.
So if you're elected and take a seat on the council in November, do you have a priority or two that you're going to bring with you to the council?
I do. I have my list that I have been looking at, the different things I'd like to do. One of the first things I would like to do, and I just don't think we should wait on any longer, is moving Crestlawn Cemetery, the dog park, and Memorial Island into our city charter. I think the fact that those aren't there is, I'd like to think that maybe it's a clerical error at best, but I think it's wrong to risk those not being in there. And with Crestlawn Cemetery being a city property that we maintain, and we have this covenant with the citizens, it needs to be part of our city in the charter. I would also like to see some things happen with the police department. I would like to see that we start analyzing the budget and looking at how we can make the salary of our police officers competitive, at least within the county, with the sheriff's department. Our officers are fantastic. They've given a lot to this community. Every single day they risk their lives when they go out to the door to their jobs. And they've had a pay freeze for 5 years, and we're losing officers every month to surrounding agencies. And I don't want to see some of the people who have been keeping the city safe and keeping the problems that are afflicting some places to the north of us and some places to the south of us creep into Vero Beach because we've lost a high quality officer.
At the same time, the city remains under a pay freeze. The county in the coming year is going to be giving out raises to most of their employees, or many of their employees, including all of the employees in the sheriff's office. You know, you're familiar with the benchmarking?
Yes,
Yeah,
I am.
Right. So I've got a slight smile on my face because that certainly has some flaws to it. One benchmark statistic is to compare the city's spending in the police department to other cities. If you look at Stewart, for example, though the spending is close, Stewart has half as many square miles to protect. So how is that a one-to-one comparison? Or Stewart doesn't have a 911 call center within their police department. How is that then a one-to-one comparison? Those numbers that are lifted up to try to position the city as way over budget in comparison to other cities just simply crumbles under closer scrutiny.
I think so. I think there's two things to take away from the benchmarking studies. I think one is the cities that were chosen to benchmark against Vero Beach are not comparable for some of the reasons you've stated, and there are others. Whether it's the square mileage, whether it's the different services that we offer, or whether they have beaches, or all these other things that their spending is different than ours. But I think the other takeaway from the benchmarking study is look at these cities that are much smaller and spend as much or more than Vero Beach to provide the same level, or even provide levels of services that are under what we provide. So what I think the benchmarking shows is for the size we are and what we offer, we're doing a pretty good job in comparison to cities that have smaller areas, smaller services offered, and are spending as much or more than we are. So I think there are multiple takeaways to the benchmarking study.
But some of the cities aren't even coastal cities, so they don't have beaches to protect.
Or they don't have a marina, or they don't have an airport, or they don't have a cemetery, or they don't have, one of the cities had, I think, maybe 10 or 15 festivals a year, or events. Our recreation department puts on over 270 events a year. I mean, that means that there's multiple events every week.
So we were talking about benchmarking.
And I was talking especially about our recreation department. 270 festivals plus last year, events that we're putting on. I mean, between the Sunset Saturdays, Downtown Fridays, Hibiscus Festival, all of these things, all these moving parts our city does, and we're able to deliver it within a budget that other cities that don't deliver as many festivals, don't have as much mileage, as square mileage, don't have marina and airport. We are really competitive as far as city budgets go for the mass amount of things we deliver.
You know, among the cities that were compared to Vero Beach in the benchmarking study, one city had a lower millage rate, a lower tax rate, property tax, only one.
Well, I think also that's because they had, their property values were a lot higher.
Yeah, and so I raise that as an interesting example. Some could say, look at the quality of services in Marco Island, and they charge just under 2 mils, and Vero Beach charges 2.03. But if you look at the property tax base, they have a property tax base of $9 billion compared to Vero Beach's of around $3 billion.
Right. So I mean, I think if we had property, our property was worth $9 billion, then you could have a very low tax rate. But you know, not every house in Vero Beach is a mansion. You know, we have smaller single residential homes and single family homes. So I think we've done a good job of keeping our millage rate low, but still delivering fantastic services to the city.
So to me, when that statistic from Marco Island, for example, is used, it's used more as ammunition and information because it's not the whole story. It's being used to win an argument rather than to inform. There's just been a lot of that, it seems to me.
I think so, and that's another reason why we really encourage greater citizen participation in city council and in attending the meetings, because I think the more that citizens can be informed, then the less propaganda that has to be coming out in sound bites for people to be making decisions on. And if you can have the whole story and you can become informed and you can talk to our council members, talk to the finance commission, talk to these people who spend their days and hours crunching these numbers and working for the city, you can get a greater picture of what's going on.
It reminds me of I can't remember which columnist suggested that when people are tuning in to one of the two news media that's way far to the left or to the right, they're not tuning in for information, but for ammunition
Right.
to be used in their next debate. So, it's interesting. I've seen some studies of corporations, and the ones that are the most effective, just look at the meetings. The culture is really more about trying to get a deeper understanding than it is to win a debate. Which goes back to that one of Covey's 7 habits, to seek first to understand and then to be understood.
And I think so, because I just don't think that the city of Vero Beach, the government, our city council and our city staff, it should not be polarizing. It is not left, it is not right. There is a single common interest here, and that is what's best for the city of Vero Beach and its residents. And I don't think that it's that far to find the middle ground within our community of where we want to go forward. I think a lot of people, the common ground already exists. It's why they moved here. Or it's why once they were kids and went off to college, they returned back here. Because the city has consistently been a safe place to live with a high quality of life at a relatively low cost. So how do we keep that going forward? We've already been given our mandate from the community, so how do we maintain that and do it at the best of our abilities?
Well, I hope our listeners and viewers find this interview helpful to them as they make a decision. And I hope if they're eligible to vote in the city of Vero Beach, they will make an effort to vote next Tuesday.